Gotcha. How many more Guardians do you have right now in your fleet? 2?
Catch that ibis, guys.
2. It's just me and another guy with a small shield. So if anything happens to me, you guys...
Look, he dropped like a bunch of Magnate Covert Ops.
It's like one of those like Russian nesting dolls. Transports and transports.
Back to another one.
I thought I had the meat.
No, it's fine. It just means that everyone has to be really good about anchoring, and you should probably keep your thrust at like 80% during the fight. 75 to 80, so people can catch up to you. It just means you have to anchor better. It's a small shield, so I have a movement, so we're good.
We're back up to 124 in local now.
Who's got an active translator? What are they saying?
I don't know.
Anybody speak Chinese?
There is currently doing something. Let's wait till he comes back.
Okay, Daisy.
I think they're bad. Angry face with hands.
Well, they're trapped in their own system, so I'd be pissed too.
The first said delivery. The second said the supplies that I asked to give me. This is according to Google.
So he was delivering transport ships to get everything out. That's funny.
Those magnates. That magnates, yeah, we blew them up. That was too funny. That's probably PI mag. Yeah, son.
Hey guys, so this is just a little bit of commentary the day after. Like I said, I was using headphones for the rest of the time, so no longer had comm access. You can see here we're in the final seconds of the structure. Flying Scythe, and we had absolutely zero resistance at this. Looks like they were trying to get everything out of this station, and we ended up blowing up the Terra that was carrying like 10 Magnate Covert Ops. So that's always fun. And then after this, we ended up deciding to see if we couldn't go and pick a fight, which I've got highlighted in the video as well. At this point, we had received confirmation they were on their way. "20 minutes later, we're still waiting. Comms chatter had devolved to complete nonsense, and we had said if they didn't show, we were going to head home. And literally, right as we were saying that, we noticed the local spike, and things got interesting. I just wanted to throw a shout out here to the Southern Vale Coalition. They had absolutely zero reason to fight us. They knew they were going to lose ships. We obviously knew we were going to lose ships as well. They weren't defending anything. They literally just came for content. And for that, we salute you. Assuming their positioning, and let's get started. Obviously, frigates landing first, and you can see that the cruisers are following in after. Got an interdictor on the gate that is obviously going to have a bad day here in a second. I'd already set it up to try and save her, but I have a feeling that this was never going to work. So you can see she almost got alpha'd immediately. I mean, I'm throwing reps at her, but it just doesn't matter. So I'm in the fleet with the NATOs. Tahini has his own fleet that is running stabbers. You can see the numbers here are a little bit in the favor of who we're fighting. At about 186, we fielded about 70 for this fight, so it's about 116 to 70. And you can see everybody's got their murder balls set up, and we're gonna have a fun time. I'm kind of using this opportunity here to, while they're all, repositioning and getting set up, to make sure that I have everybody that I want locked in case I need to try and emergency heal somebody from downtown. So what I'm actually doing is I'm locking the 2 Guardians from the other fleet. And so if I am actually ever close enough at some point and they need help, I can always try to help rep them, because the NATO fleet is going to be sitting obviously at quite a distance. And so there's a likelihood that they're not going to need a whole lot. I noticed this Condor Interceptor behind us. Obviously, if that gets into within 100, the enemy fleet can then just warp to him at 100 off and ruin the NATO party that we've got going on here. So they ended up primarying him, did not hit, and then we had another one here, Nova 9, doing the exact same thing, and they spent the entire time harassing positioning. So they're dropping crates, they're flying around the NATO fleet. It was actually a pretty good tactic. Again, Southern Vale had absolutely zero reason to take this fight, except for the fact that they wanted content. So it's a pretty good job. You can see the light interdictor here got alpha'd almost all the way to death, and between myself and the Scythes and the other fleet, we were able to get it back to full shield. Pretty sure, if I remember correctly, at some point it just gets completely alpha'd off the field before we can save it again. I think here, once he's full, I switch to Tahini. Yeah, switch to Tahini and try to just help alleviate some of the damage that he's taking as well. Make it a little bit easier for his Scythes, because I obviously am not going to be doing a whole lot of healing in this fleet. I'm here more for emergencies. So I'll get them all situated and set up. And you see, as this fleet goes on, you'll see that the grid is littered with loot crates and wreckages from both sides. Everybody took losses. This was probably one of the best brawls that I've ever been in. I think that most of the fleet commanders said the exact same thing, that throughout this fight, not only were we relatively pushed, but at the same time, we're able to actually have fun. It was good to go up against another alliance that actually understood fleet dynamics and didn't just come flying at you in a swarm, which can have its own benefits, but most of the time a well-organized fleet is going to be able to pick that apart. You can see here we've got wrecks that are starting, NATOs are alphaing items off the field in 1 to 2 volleys that that lag behind their Guardian bubbles. And so that's what we're doing. Stretching people out, getting them to fall out of the bubble, and then blapping them off the field. And you can start seeing the pods and wreckages being created as we speak. Yeah, this interdictor here is looking like he's going to go down. I'm throwing reps at him, but at 270, the fall off on large reppers is only 145 or something like that. I mean, I'm not doing anything to help him. He's got Scythes in his own fleet that's trying to do what they can to help him as well. The problem here is the same problem that every single destroyer is going to have, and it's speed. Cruisers are just outpacing the destroyer, who's having trouble keeping up, lagging out of the bubble. And then if he's not in the bubble, he's going to get primaried. And so I spent a lot of time in this fleet doing this type of stuff here. So I noticed a couple of interceptors chasing after somebody else that was trying to get a warp in for the other fleet. Just lock them in case they're taking damage, so that way I can throw some reps at them to keep them alive, keep them healed. Again, Promised, who is the anchor for the Tornado fleet, took very minimal damage throughout this entire fight because the opposing FCs were pretty smart, and so they only shot at stuff that was outside the bubble. And you can see here, this little interceptor is taking additional damage, and so I decided that I'm going to throw some reps at it and just kind of top him off. Hopefully that's enough time for him to pop that interceptor, which it looks like was done. And at that point, I'm able to de-lock. I want to keep my original people locked. So I've got another Scythe with me in this fleet that I'm keeping locked in case it gets primaried. I have my heavy interdictor and the Guardian, and then I've got the Guardians of the other fleet locked as well. They're well outside my range, but just in case we get close then and they need the additional assistance, then I can throw reps at them. I locked up that interceptor again just to see what was going on and if I'd healed him completely to full. I did, and then I saw that he was going after another interceptor out in the distance, so I relocked him just to make sure if he needs help I can throw it out there to him. Here shortly, again, you can see the battlefield here is just littered with wrecks and loot crates, and that's what they were doing. Interceptors were flying around dropping loot crates. They had wrecks all over the place, and they were using that as warp-ins to be able to make the distance be able to be closed. NATO fleet is going to have much better speed than the opposing force, and so they were trying to utilize that warp-in. It's a great idea. In this particular instance, it didn't end up working out. Promised has a little bit too much experience running a fleet like this to allow something like that to actually catch him off guard. So typically he sets a deputy in this particular fleet. I was the deputy, and for some reason I was thinking I could invite people as they disconnected and reconnected. I cannot, but I tried a couple different times to see if I could get people back in the fleet that had disconnected. You can see right there I'm trying and it says no. Just because the last thing that he needs to be worrying about right now is trying to add people to his fleet when he should be trying to make sure nobody dies and that we're engaging the enemy. But mechanics don't allow us to do that. So it is what it is, I guess. And you can see we are stretched out. Promise is right there. I'm trying to follow at about 24 kilometers now, 25. The issue that we're going to run into is that the top speed of the Scythe just is not close to what the ships that they're running is. And so what ends up happening is I end up lagging behind. A little ways into this fight, they recognized that and started primarying me and also hit me with target painters, which I thought was a pretty smart idea. I don't know if that directly affects reppers, but it seemed like it was working, and that sucked, but I could be wrong. I could just be misremembering things. I reached out here to Big King Kaz, looks like in a tornado. He's lagging way off, and I wanted to have him locked in case they started primarying him. He then warped off and waited to utilize a warp-in point for us once we were safer. Same thing's happening here with another individual as they're lagging off, either because of cap drain or not as quick as far as the speed goes. So just locking the stragglers here to throw reps at them, so that way we can try and get them back in with the rest of the fleet. And you can see the murder balls have kind of turned more into like murder snakes. Most of the engagement was pretty long, prolonged. If you look at the little recording bubble up there, this fight has been going on for 58 minutes so far. Many of the individuals that were killed went reshipped and came back, which kudos to them for that. That's pretty awesome. We ended up killing the same individuals multiple times. We lost stabbers, lost tornadoes. Overall, this was a blast of a fight. Really enjoyed it. You can see here I got target painters on me. I think that's what that is. Yeah, target painters. Trying to obviously primary me. And you can see I'm getting yellow boxed by everybody over there, which again, not a bad strategy. I had lagged outside of the bubble because of the speed difference here. And so Promise was having to consistently slow down his ship so that way I could catch up, as well as a couple other tornadoes that might not have been as fast. Jumping ahead, there's been a couple of different jump aheads here because the majority of this fight was pretty much the same. You can see the drone glitch here. Even though the drones are well outside the range of the ship, they've stayed on the target. And so I'm now utilizing my reppers to try and heal that target back up. We got danger close on this little maneuver here that we pulled. They were trying to warp to crates and stuff and I think at one point they got to within 40, which is not a good idea for a tornado fleet. And so we got these drones that are chilling here on some of the tornadoes, and so I'm trying to get that taken care of. You can see that I completely capped out trying to heal that tornado. That is the drawback of using a large booster. And so with 0 cap, I have no other option. I can't micro warp drive. I do have to warp out. And so, that was relayed. That's why there's 2 Scythes in the NATO fleet. So there we go. Basically just warping off to a Celestial. We had a couple of them where we had friendlies at just to make sure that there was safe warp off points. I'm pretty sure they did the exact same thing because if you went to the wrong Celestial, you would get tackled. And so see here, I went to the first one. Obviously, they'd be able to see where I was going. So if they sent light frigates after me, I wanted to immediately warp to another one to avoid being instantly tackled. There is a friendly stabber here just in case. And once that additional warp occurs, I'm landing at the second planet. I recognize that I have enough friendlies here that I can cap up real fast. So I end up canceling my warp and go into recharge mode. Going to recharge mode, message back to the main fleet asking when it's safe to warp in. Obviously, if they're all using micro warp drives and I warp in, I'm not going to land on them. I'm going to land on them wherever they were when I initiated the warp, which means I'll probably end up landing inside the opposing murder bubble. And I don't really want to land inside the murder ball. That's not a fun way to go. So make sure I get the okay that it's good to warp. So their micro warp drives are off. I do. Here's a quick note. You can warp with recharge mode on. So my cap is still increasing at 50% increased recharge rate while warping. And I'm trying to regain control with the fleet. Problem with that is obviously I lost all my locked targets, so I'm going to have to go through and manually find everybody all over again, so that way I can pre-lock people to ensure that they stay alive. First and foremost is my anchor. So you can see I'm manually piloting in that direction. I find Promise, anchor back on, and start finding all of my additional targets to lock and ensure that I can keep alive. At this point, the Tahini fleet of stabbers was almost 400 kilometers away. So there's not really much I can do at that point. So I just allowed it to be. A little pause here in the storm as we cap up. If you've been paying attention to the fleet size, you can see that we have lost 2 tornadoes. Obviously, we are not claiming to be invulnerable or anything along those lines. We do take losses. We just try to play in a way that minimizes the amount of losses that we take. The Tahini fleet obviously has closed that gap. We're about 200 away now, and so I wanted to make sure that I was able to lock them if I needed to. And Tornado fleet is now attacking targets again. Surprisingly, the heavy interdictor that's with the main fleet survived the whole entire time, which is pretty awesome considering it has the doo-doo speed just like I do. So half that fleet's warping off to a gate, the other half is warping off into this particular direction. You can see I'm being yellow boxed. I am well outside of this bubble, and that is only 30 or so kilometers away. And so I make the executive decision that I'm not going to be able to make it back into that bubble because he's going to have to make a long burn to get to range. And so I decide I'm going to warp off to a Celestial and then regroup with the actual fleet after I've landed. Worked perfectly last time. And so on comms, Promise is like, don't Leroy into the bubble. He did not realize I was already warping when that was going on. So I warp off, get ready to reapproach, actually get ready to warp to another Celestial just so they don't know which one I'm at. And this is where I make a mistake. So land at the first Celestial, and you'll notice there's hostiles. Great. So what do? I try to warp right away. Obviously, I was not done warping, and so it did not register. In that case, that gave them just enough time to lock me and scramble me, and now I can't do anything. So I did reach out to them through comms. You can see me typing here as well, just to try and let everybody know, like, hey, I'm on Planet 3. There's only 3 people here. Plenty of time for me to be able to tank this and get somebody out here, but at this point, you can see my recorder. It's an hour and 20 minutes that this fight has been going on nonstop. Everybody's pretty much capped dry and done. We had established a couple safes that we were able to warp off to and just tell everybody good fight. We had a blast. Both sides obviously took losses. Both sides ended up enjoying. I'm assuming we both enjoyed. Got lots of good fights back and forth, but I'm stuck, and there's nothing I can do about it. So I've been with this particular Scythe ever since I first joined MC, and I had never lost one. But, you know, there's first time for everything, so that'll make me sad. I'm asking again, hey, is there anyone that can come save me? We've been sending interceptor fleets off to the planets to save tornadoes as they warped off, and tried to see if I could get anybody to do that. There wasn't anybody there. They'd already warped off to safes. The interceptors had already started making their way back home, and I was kind of stuck. A tornado did end up warping to this location right after I died and then got tackled. At that point, Tahini had seen the shout out that I had, and he warped his fleet in, and they were able to break free that tornado, and then they all ended up warping off to the safe. And at this point, I get my free ride home. Well, at least once this RB is able to lock me, then I get my free ride home. So, put in the customary good fight. I do that whether I kill or I die, because that's the point of the game, and get sent back home. There's my lovely lost mail from my Scythe. Again, shout out to the Southern Vale Coalition. They had literally zero reason to take this fight other than fun, and they took it anyway. So, alright, hope you enjoyed it. Have a good one, guys.